morning, everybody. It is 8:03 a.m. Here in Pennsylvania, where I am this morning, and it is 8:03 Miami, which we'll get to in a moment as to why that's relevant. I am Julie Roginski. I am not here with Michelle Kinney this morning. She's going to try to join in a few minutes. She's a little bit under the weather, but she's trying to rally to be able to join us today. We also have an incredibly special guest today, which I'm so happy that we're able to have, which is Lieutenant Colonel Jaclyn Urso. She's retired, a former JAG officer, and she is going to be here in a little while to also talk to us about everything that's been going on with this threat that Pete Hegseth launched against Senator Mark Kelly, and how they're trying to basically weaponize the Department of War, as they call it, but as we know it, the Department of Defense, to go after Mark Kelly and others for exercising their First Amendment rights. So it is so wonderful to have you all here this morning, the day before Thanksgiving. Hopefully people are out and about wherever they are with their families, or just getting ready for the holiday, or doing nothing at all, which is what I would love to be doing. But I'm going to be cooking up a storm today. I'm having my family come over to our house here to celebrate early Thanksgiving. And then we're going to my husband's brother's house tomorrow for the actual holiday. So I have a lot of cooking ahead of me. But the reason I bring up Miami, and the reason I wanted to start with that today, is that there was some breaking news overnight or late last night that was really shocking. And I know that we've been talking about this subject for the last few days. And of course, as predicted, it came to pass. Steve Witkoff, who we know was the person who accepted the 28-point peace plan from Ukraine in Miami from Kirill Dmitriev, who is a Russian money man for Vladimir Putin. He's not a diplomat. He's not a member of the Russian Foreign Ministry. He is Putin's bagman. He runs the Sovereign Wealth Fund for the Russian Federation. Anyway, he's known in Russia as Putin's wallet. That is who gave Witkoff the 28-point peace plan that he and Jared Kushner presented as their own. That is what Marco Rubio all but told a bunch of senators in Halifax, Nova Scotia over the weekend as he was flying to Geneva. And then, as we all heard later, he backpedaled that. But I'm telling you right now, and we've talked about this before, as a native Russian speaker, it was written in Russian and translated into English. In any case, we were all wondering what this was all about. I think I said, and have been saying for a very long time, I said this on social media, certainly I think I've said it on the show, that Witkoff's son, Zach Witkoff, runs the crypto fund that the Trump family owns a majority stake in. They have made billions with a B off of it since they launched it a year ago. And the question is, who's been putting money into the Sovereign Wealth Fund, into this crypto fund, and why is this crypto fund in existence, and why Steve Witkoff was one of the co-founders, along with Donald Trump, of this crypto fund, involved in it through his son. Steve Witkoff is not a diplomat. Steve Witkoff is not anybody experienced in negotiating any kind of peace deals. He is fundamentally a real estate developer. And he's a Trump real estate developer / golfing buddy, who Trump mysteriously appointed his envoy for peace, to negotiate both the quote unquote Gaza ceasefire, which I assure you is not a ceasefire, that he and Jared Kushner parachuted in at the last minute to claim credit for. And now they're trying to negotiate at the last minute and parachute and take credit for what is going to be potentially a very shameful peace in Ukraine. And for a very long time, if you've been watching the show, you have heard me say, what is this all about? What is Steve Witkoff's role in this? And last night, we got a little bit of a hint of what that role is. Bloomberg got its hands on a recording between Steve Witkoff and a Russian aide to Vladimir Putin, who is basically Putin's right-hand guy for foreign policy. And his name is Yuri Ushakov. He's a senior foreign policy aide to Putin. And in this recording that Bloomberg got their hands on, it's very explosive. There are a couple of very interesting things. But the most interesting in the headline of all this, if you haven't seen it yet, is that Witkoff is effectively telling the Russians how to undermine the Ukrainians. He is telling them that Zelensky is going to be at the White House asking for, as we heard and we knew last month, asking for Tomahawk missiles to help him fight the Russians, and that he, Wickoff, is telling Ushakov to tell his boss, Vladimir Putin, and that's a direct quote, and I'll read you some quotes in a moment, talking about how he should call Trump to undermine Zelensky before the meeting so that they get on the same page that will effectively undermine Zelensky as he was coming to the White House asking for help against the Russians. And here is what, I'm just going to read you a couple quotes here. The entire transcript is worth reading. But basically, Wickoff encouraged Ushakov to schedule a Putin-Trump call before Zelensky's White House visit later that week. And he was saying this to reason that this would give Moscow an advantage in shaping Trump's treatment of Zelensky because, as he all but said, the last person who speaks to Trump and is in Trump's ear is the person who Trump listens to. This is what Wickoff said, quote, "I will go to that meeting because they want me there, but I think if possible, we have the call with your boss being Putin, before that Friday Zelensky meeting." He also offered early signs of what became last week's one-sided 28-point U.S. peace framework for Ukraine. And this is what he said. And this is just, this is shocking. And I'll get to in a moment why this is relevant to the discussion we're going to have in a few moments with Lieutenant Colonel Urso about treason and about Mark Kelly and how the Trump administration has the nerve to accuse anybody else of treason. But this is what Wickoff said to Vladimir Putin's right-hand guy, quote, "Me to you, I know what it's going to take to get a peace deal done. Donetsk is, of course, the eastern part of Ukraine that the Russians have wanted and coveted for a long time. Donetsk and maybe a land swap somewhere." He then coached a softer public tone from the Russians. But I'm saying, instead of talking like that, let's talk more hopefully, because I think we're going to get to a deal here. And I think Yuri, the president, will give me a lot of space and discretion to get to that deal. This is the man representing the United States in its most sensitive negotiations since the end of the Cold War. This is the man who remains financially linked through his family to a crypto company, accumulating vast sums of money from foreign entities that may have a stake in how these negotiations unfold. This is just, I can't think, I know my history pretty well. I truly don't think there's a bigger foreign policy scandal than in the history of this country than what is happening right now. I've said it for days. If you've watched the show for days, you've heard me say, even before this tape leaked, this transcript leaked, this recording leaked, that this was absolutely a very bizarre situation where why is Trump selling out Ukraine, selling out our Western allies, selling out the Pax Americana, selling out the American established world order to help a despot, to help a genocidal killer? Why is he appointing Steve Wickoff, with whom he launched a crypto fund, to be the point person negotiating, along with Jared Kushner, neither of whom works for the government, neither of whom should have any security clearance, both of whom have their own funds where they make an astonishing amount of money from opaque sources? Well, now we know. Now we know. You have Donald Trump's representative, Steve Wickoff, who again is financially tied to this crypto fund whose donors are not disclosed, telling and guiding Vladimir Putin's right-hand person as to how to undermine the Ukrainians and secure a deal for themselves that they could not secure in the battlefield. I mean, this is just, I don't know what to say about this other than this is just so absurd and terrifying that I truly think that if, as we talked about yesterday, one day when people will be reading about this in the history books, they won't believe it. They'll think that this can't possibly be, but it is. It is. And That is what's going on right now, this very moment. Now, Trump was asked about this on Air Force One yesterday. I don't have the elements, unfortunately, but Trump was asked about this yesterday as he was flying down to Mar-a-Lago on Air Force One about this. And he said, yeah, Wickoff talks to everybody. He talks to the Russians. He talked to the Ukrainians. I'm sure he's had those similar kinds of conversations with the Ukrainians. And he and Jared are apparently flying to Moscow as recently as next week to seal the deal with Putin. Now, I don't think that he's having those discussions with Ukraine. I don't think he's telling Zelensky's right-hand people how to manipulate Donald Trump so that they can get Tomahawk missiles. I don't think he's telling Zelensky's people to have Zelensky call Trump a day or two before the Alaska summit and tell them what to say so that he sticks it to Vladimir Putin at that Alaska summit. And I will also say another thing that just kind of popped up. And again, it's just amazing to me that the media is not all over this, and we can have 15 hours of just how the media is falling down on this. But the Russians came back and said that they only will accept a peace deal that was agreed to in Anchorage, at the Anchorage summit. The Anchorage summit was that meeting that Trump had with Putin back in August. That same summit where he spent 10 minutes alone in the presidential limousine, the Beast, having a secret discussion with Putin without any aides present except for their security people, their body people. What was agreed to at that Alaska summit that the Russians now think is the only thing that they will agree to? We don't know. But this all happened on our dime and in our country. We don't know. We don't know. And the other question I have is, who leaked this to Bloomberg? Somebody had a recording of this conversation. Now, presumably, there were only two people on this call. Shakov, the Russian, and Wickoff, the American. Who recorded that discussion? Or who bugged Wickoff's phone? Or who has sources in the Kremlin to leak this? Now, one of several possibilities. One is that the Russians leaked it to stick it to Wickoff or to Trump to remind him that they're not screwing around. I doubt it, but it's possible. Two, the more likely scenario is our own intelligence services who are aghast and appalled at what's happening and need Wickoff sidelined. And they failed on that because Trump is not sidelining Wickoff. In fact, he and Jared, as I said, are flying over to Moscow to meet with Putin. So Trump has just doubled down on Wickoff. And again, you have to ask the question, why? Why is he doubling down on Wickoff? Why not Rubio, the Secretary of State, who's also the national security advisor? I mean, Rubio's got 15 different titles. Why is he not the one talking to Putin? Because Rubio used to be a war hawk, and Putin doesn't like Rubio, but he likes Wickoff, and we know why. And the third option is one of our European allies or other allies who are just aghast at what is going on and felt that they needed to alert the world. And that's not out of the realm because, of course, we saw that the Dutch and the British both said that they're not sharing some intelligence information with us. And they said that publicly, which means that this was a warning to the world that we're not to be trusted anymore. This is just an escalation of that. So it's unclear who did it. The very outside possibility here is that the Israelis did it because Hamas was being trained for October 7th by the Russians. And this was not widely covered, but one of the Israeli ministers right after October 7th publicly told the Russians that they would remember that they screwed Israel and they would, basically make them pay for it eventually. So it's a possibility, maybe, but I doubt it. Anyway, we don't know. But that's actually a very interesting story too, when we eventually find out who this leak to Bloomberg was, which we eventually will, maybe in the history books, but we eventually will. But this is just, I don't really know what else to say here other than we are living in a crazy timeline. Kushner and Wickoff are, at the very least, if they're negotiating with anybody, should be expected to give up the sources of the money going into their funds and in Witkoff's case, into the fund that is managed on behalf of the Trump family by his son, Zach, who is the CEO of World Liberty Financial. And if there is any reason on earth why you might not have been wanting to vote for the Democrats next year, one of those reasons is we need to subpoena the shit out of all of these people. They'll disregard the subpoenas. They will absolutely not testify. They won't give up the documents. Eventually, we will get to this. I will say one more thing about this. I personally, and hopefully you all agree, I am not voting for one Democrat in any primary who is not going to say point blank that he's going to launch an investigation into all of this and let the chips fall where they may. No more moving on, no more former guy. This is a major foreign policy scandal. And if we don't immediately have accountability for it, we don't have a country anymore. Because it is quite obvious that people are paying Witkoff and maybe Kushner, who are either in the Kremlin or allied or tied to the Kremlin or somehow otherwise representing the Kremlin's interest, to throw Ukraine under the bus. Ukraine, which is fighting our war for us. Just so you know, this is not some random country. We've talked about this before. This is not some random country on the edge of civilization here. This is, by landmass, the second largest country in Europe, that if it is allowed to fall, will be the first domino to fall, not just in Europe, but in Asia with Taiwan, in the Middle East, and that will lead to nuclearization, as we talked about, all over the world, and most likely another world war eventually, because that's how these things go. So on that note, I want to bring up a few other things here before we get to Lieutenant Colonel Urso, and Michelle hopefully feels better to come on. Very interesting couple of things here. One is that Kash Patel, our FBI director, who Donald Trump defended yesterday, but apparently privately has had kind of enough of, is now using SWAT teams on the FBI to protect his girlfriend, who's an aspiring country singer. And for instance, when she sang the Star Spangled Banner at the NRA's annual convention in Atlanta this spring, she had a SWAT team accompanying her from the Bureau's local field office in Atlanta. I mean, they had been sent there, the two agents, who are part of a specialized unit trained to storm barricaded buildings and rescue hostages, are now protecting Kash Patel's girlfriend, the aspiring country singer, and they had been sent there on Kash Patel's personal orders. And they left before the event was over. And because they left before the event was over, Kash Patel ripped into their commander, saying that his girlfriend, had been left without taxpayer-funded defenders, and basically said that they had violated the chain of command by doing this, and that they should have stuck around and protected her on the convention floor at the NRA convention, by the way. Now, I always heard that anything stopping bad guys with guns are a bunch of good people, good guys with guns. I would think that the NRA convention would have had plenty of good guys with guns, according to Kash Patel. But apparently the NRA and all of their armed people are not enough to protect his girlfriend, the country singer who was singing the Star Spangled Banner at the NRA convention. He also needed to send SWAT teams who should have been spending their time storming buildings that are barricaded and rescuing hostages. But I guess in this case, we're protecting Kash Patel's girlfriend. You know, that's the kind of clown car that's funny until we realize that it's going to get all of us harmed. It's just another outrage that I think in a sea of outrages, you kind of forget about this, but it's pretty incredible. Now, finally, because Michelle and I have been complaining about this, and Tara and Jojo and I have been as well for, a number of years now, Finally, my friends, if you open up the New York Times today, better late than never, you will see a headline that says something along the lines of, and maybe I'll just pull it up and I'll read it to you. Shorter days, signs of fatigue, Trump faces realities of aging in office. And the story is effectively that he's sleepy Don and he's not doing so well and he's getting old and he's not keeping up and he's not the Energizer Bunny anymore. It took them years to do this. They still aren't really focusing on his crazy mental health issues. I assume Jake Tapper is going to get right on this now that the New York Times is on it. But it's interesting how it took all of this time for the New York Times and for media to finally catch up to the fact that, yes, Donald Trump is 79 years old. He's not so spry. He's not so young. And he's not really qualified to be president from a physical standpoint, never mind a mental standpoint, which they didn't even touch, other than to say that he dozed off in important meetings over the last number of months, which we all watched happen. But it's nice that the New York Times actually covered this about a month or so after it happened. Anyway, all right. I am going to bring in Jaclyn, Lieutenant Colonel Urso. I don't know if Michelle wants to get on. She is here. Michelle is here.
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm so sorry, Julie. Thank you for...
It's okay. I just did an outrage monologue for about 20
No, I was listening as I was putting enough blush on my face to not look like a dead person. So, but I appreciate everyone for your patience. Zofran, take the wheel this morning. I don't know what's going on with me. I have not felt well for a few days, and it just bleh. So I was texting Julie at like, I don't know what time it was, 5 a.m, and I was like, oh. So I'm glad that you informed everybody, though, because I feel like the story about Witkoff especially is just not getting the attention that it's getting. Certainly not on my feeds. And then separately, the stuff about Donald Trump. I mean, how long have like you said, how long have we been saying this? How long have we, let me throw this up here. I want to throw this up here. I love the Daily Beast because they always refer to him as his age. Confused Trump, 79, mistakenly amplifies calls to impeach himself. So Confused Trump posted a screenshot of Senator Mark Kelly, a topic we're going to get to in just a minute here. A retired naval officer and one of 6 Democratic lawmakers featured in the video from an anti-Trump account named Impeach Trump a Third Time. So good.
You want me to cheer you up before we bring Jaclyn in?
Yeah, please.
All right. So we talked about Tony Danza yesterday, and I texted Michelle this yesterday, but it's a funny story, so I'll just tell everybody this today. So remember how we talked about crazy, like, New York stories about random people you run into?
Mm-hmm.
I tell people this to cleanse the palate for what we just talked about, and also what we're going to talk about in a minute with Jaclyn, because after we're done with her, we're going to have to probably run.
Yeah.
So I was at MSNBC yesterday. I'm sorry, MS Now yesterday.
MS Now.
Now.
Not later.
Not later, now. And I go into the green room, and there's a guy sitting there who looks vaguely familiar, but I'm not really sure who he is.
This was the best text I've ever received, by the way.
Yeah.
Can I actually just read it? Can I read it when you're done? I want you to do it, and I want to read the text.
Yeah. So I walk in, and he's this guy sitting there, and he's got like, an entourage, a bit of an entourage, not a huge one, but somewhat of an entourage, which is unusual at MSNBC. It's not kind of a place where people come with entourages. And I'm like, okay. So I start talking to him because, I'm friendly. I start talking to him, and the guy's kind of like grunting at me, not really saying much back, but I'm trying to be friendly and polite because it's a small green room and we're all in there together. And I actually say to him, I'm like, hi, I'm Julie. And he doesn't tell me his name back. And I was like, okay. So then they come and get me for makeup. So as I'm walking out to get makeup, I say to the PA who's walking me to the makeup room, I go, what's that guy's name? So I can tell him, goodbye on the way back. And she mumbles something like under her breath quietly, because I guess she didn't want anybody to hear. And I was like, huh, who? Like, I'd never heard of this guy. And she's like, His name is 50 Cent.
I can't. It's literally the greatest thing. I have the text right here. Just had a nice chat in the MS Now green room with a random guy with a big entourage. No clue who he was until I asked PA his name so I could tell him goodbye on the way out. Turns out his name is 50 Cent.
He was not very friendly. I think he was a little offended, but I was like, "Hi, I'm Julie," waiting for him to introduce himself. And he's like, "Yeah." I think he assumed I would know who he was.
There? It's so random. Was he there to see Ari Melber or something?
Katie Tur.
Really?
I think. Yeah. I don't know. Very random.
Well, anyways, on that note, before we bring Jaclyn in, I just want to show everyone this. I want to replay the video. This is the video that Pete Hegseth and others are trying to tell the world is seditious. It's not. Here it is.
Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow.
I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
And the intelligence community.
Who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
like us. You all swore an oath
To protect and defend this Constitution.
And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
But from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law.
Or our Constitution.
We know this is hard.
And that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
In the Army,
Our Navy,
The Air Force.
Your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
because now, more than ever,
The American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution,
And who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
don't give up.
don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, you know, and again, just one more thing I want to show here. Where is it? Is this the one? No, that's Mark Hertling. That's Jeff Flake. I was trying to throw up that. So basically, Pete Hegseth tweeted out a bunch of nonsense, and I'll throw that up once we get Jaclyn here. But let me just let me grab Jaclyn because she is, or she was. She would know. She was a judge advocate in the United States Marine Corps for 20 years. And she deals with this kind of stuff or dealt with this kind of stuff all the time. She also happens to be my sister-in-law. If you're new to the show and you haven't met Jaclyn before. So we're going to bring her in and we're going to talk to her a little bit about the legality of these accusations and how bananas they are. Jaclyn, good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
How's it going?
Good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on. This is
thanks for coming back.
Appreciate
guys
the
all
opportunity.
together? You're not together on Thanksgiving, right? Jaclyn,
No.
Oh, that's right. You're with your parents, right, Michelle?
Yes, and her parents actually.
Oh,
Yeah, your parents will be here later today.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so except we'll see Jaclyn at Christmas. We'll see Jaclyn at Christmas.
Nice.
It'll be good. But Jaclyn, I just right off the bat, I'm curious to know what was your immediate reaction when you saw that they were threatening to recall Mark Kelly and court-martial him. I mean, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's a very abnormal thing to recall a retired officer for some statements that he or she may have made. And then I said, well, what are they going to recall him for? For saying, don't follow illegal orders. Okay, so what are they going to charge him with? Article 90, Article 92. Okay, let's read that. What does Article 92 say? Violation of a lawful general order. Okay, a lawful general order. What is a lawful general order? Something that doesn't violate the Constitution of the United States or the rules or regulations of the United States.
Right.
What is the president doing right now?
Right.
He's giving unlawful orders. I mean, we've got court orders saying that the president is violating the orders of the United States. So it's kind of going around in a circle saying, it just doesn't make sense to me.
So-
I have
So go ahead, Julie.
I have a question about this because I didn't realize this was like Hotel California. You're telling me that if when you quit, when you retire from the military, they can recall you for any reason? I thought they could only recall you if there was a national crisis and like we had to go back to like what are the rules about recalling officers? That's what I think is not clear to me.
Yes, they can recall you if you receive military pay. So you're still subject to the UCMJ.
Okay.
There's 10 USC 688 saying the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of each military department is given the authority to order certain retired military members to active duty in the interest of national security. Then there's Article 2 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which states that the article makes retired officers who are receiving retirement pay and certain other retirees subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And then there's a DoD instruction 1352.1 that states, basically implements 19 USC 688, which is what I just talked about, and provides further guidance for the service on the process of courts-martial. So yes, me as a retiree, I can be recalled for either, for in the interest of national security, if there's a war going on, they can recall me and tell me to put my uniform back on. Or if I've violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice, it's usually in instances where I was originally on active duty and I may have committed a crime. I've retired. They now found out about it. They recall me to now charge me for that crime I've committed on active duty. And in rare circumstances, I've committed a crime while I'm a retiree and they bring me on active duty. It's a very, very rare circumstance.
Yeah.
But they do have the authority to do that because I am a retiree and I receive military pay.
So this the laws that apply to the military, do they apply to all the branches equally? Are they the same everywhere? They're not like if you're in the Air Force or Navy, it's different if you were in the Army or the reserves or something like that, right? It's the same everywhere.
Yes, it's 10 U.S. Code, Article 2 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and the DoD instruction. So it's uniform throughout all of the uniformed services, and it's only for courts-martial. So you cannot be recalled back for administrative proceedings. It's only for judicial proceedings.
Okay.
So they're going to court-martial him is basically what they're saying. But what you're saying is that what are you possibly court-martialing him for? I mean, does he have any reason to actually be concerned, or is this just all politics?
I think it's all politics, right? Because if you look at Article 92, it talks about the violation of a lawful general order. That's what they're going to charge him under. And they're also going to probably charge him for, let me just get my notes here, making sure that I've got this right. Article 134, which is the general order article, which states prejudice to good order and discipline of the armed forces, also conduct on becoming an officer, Article 133, and then also under Article 134, conduct of a nature to bring discredit upon the armed forces. So, under Article 92, it specifically talks about the lawfulness of an order. I'm trying to figure out what order it is that they're going to charge him under. Maybe.
I mean, they're just going to make it up. It just kind of sounds like they're just making it up.
Right. And if maybe they charge other service members under Article 90 or Article 92 as kind of a charade for disobeying if they follow, his guidance. So maybe he just gets charged under Article 133 for conduct on becoming an officer and Article 134 for either being prejudiced to good order and discipline or service conduct on becoming, service discrediting.
Okay. But does this apply equally though to also officers and just enlisted service members? Like I saw something on TV where there was a guy, I don't know who it was, I'm sorry, but it was somebody who had worked in the military or like knew military law and said something like, well, they can tell, officers can refuse illegal orders, but regular enlisted people can't. Was there any truth to that, or is that also just kind of baloney?
There's two pieces here that we need to talk about. One is the oath, and then the second part is the UCMJ.
Okay.
So if you break down the oath of enlistment is different than the oath of the officer, right? They both say support and defend the Constitution, but that's kind of where it ends. The obey the President of the United States, the enlisted have to obey the President of the United States. The officer oath does not have that. The obey of the chain of command, the enlisted has the requirement to obey appointed officers over that. The officers do not have that. The pledge, right? The enlisted have the pledge to perform the duties according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The officers pledge to faithfully discharge their duties of the office about which they're about to enter. The focus here is for the enlisted is the obedience to orders and the chain of command. The focus for the officers is the commitment to duties, responsibilities of their office, and allegiance to the Constitution itself. Now, it's because the reasoning is different. The enlisted is sworn to follow orders of those in the chain of command. The reasoning for the enlisted also is for the system is structured so they are not responsible for the orders themselves, but they are responsible for executing those lawfully given orders. The reasoning for the officers is that they're sworn to the ideals and the laws of the Constitution, not to any single person, not to the president. Right? It's for the system of checks and balances. This is intended to ensure that no person is using the military for their own personal or political agenda. And it places the responsibility on the officers to judge and execute lawful orders.
Right.
So those are the difference between the two oaths of office and the reasons behind the differences. But then
sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
I'll pause right there.
No, I was just gonna. Pete Hegseth said in his confirmation hearing, right, that he didn't want any jagoffs, as he was saying, right, JAG officers, but jagoffs. He didn't want any roadblocks in his way. And I mean, do you see this as another example of why he doesn't want anyone like you, Jaclyn, in places of power or places of influence where they can stop something like this from happening, stop something like a court-martial of Mark Kelly, because, again, for political reasons, because an individual wants to use the military for their own personal and political gain?
I think so. And if you boil it down to a service member, seeing Mark Kelly and the rest of them giving that message, and then a junior officer saying, really kind of taking that into consideration, and an order is given. A battalion commander is told to go into a city and basically violate posse comitatus, and now there's court orders out there saying that it's a violation of posse comitatus to do this, to execute police-like functions in these cities. Okay, now I've got the UCMJ Article 90 and Article 92. Article 90 is the willful disobeying of a superior commissioned officer, and Article 92 is the violation of a lawful general order. Right? And the first element for Article 90 is the accused received a lawful command from a superior commissioned officer, somebody that's not a general. So a battalion commander, a lieutenant colonel receives it from a colonel, or a colonel, in Article 92 receives it from a general officer. Right? Then we get into what is the definition of lawful. This is, where the conversation starts. Do I disobey? Do I not disobey? A general order or regulation is lawful unless it's contrary to the Constitution, the laws of the United States, or a lawful superior order that's already been given. Well, now we already have case precedents saying that it's a violation of posse comitatus. So now I'm really thinking, well, this is already a violation of federal law, because I've already got courts saying that it's a federal violation.
Right.
right? The interference of a lawfulness of an order, is an order is presumed lawful and it's disobeyed at a subordinate's peril. So now what happens? I decide I don't want to follow this order.
Right.
I tell I talk to the judge advocate. I talk to a criminal defense counsel in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. I think that this is a violation of federal law. I don't want to execute this order. I tell my battalion commander, now I've been relieved of command. Right now I've been placed in an administrative setting. Now maybe I'm on legal hold. There's an investigation. I now am, withheld from promotion purposes. I'm withheld from another billet of responsibility to show my potential for promotion. I'm withheld from, a PCS, moving from one billet to another, from one duty station to another. My whole career has been placed on hold because I think that this order that's been given to me is illegal. And now, the whole weight of the United States military and federal government is placed on my shoulders.
Right.
Now, what is the military going to do? The only way for me to challenge this order is if they decide they want to take me to a court-martial, because the determination of the lawfulness of an order is a question of law to be determined by the military judge. So if the military decides that they don't want to take me to a court-martial, they can do something administrative with me, give me some, what they call as a page 11 or a NAVMAC counseling session where I can't really challenge the validity of this administrative counseling. And they can try some administrative separations procedures saying that I violated a lawful general order and then separate me, by a preponderance of the evidence. And I get separated administratively, through either a general discharge, an honorable discharge, or an other than honorable discharge. So I don't even get my day in court.
Right.
And I've had to hire a civilian counsel to assist my military counsel. And, it's taken 6 months, a year and a half, thousands of dollars, and me just being put through the ringer administratively. And I don't even get the justice that I deserve because I didn't even get to go to court to challenge the legality of the order. So that's one way.
So let me ask you too, Jaclyn, is because another argument that they're making, well, it's lawful if the president is giving the order. And I've heard that argument used a few times. Like, is there any truth to that? Like, if Donald Trump says something, even if it's, torturing someone, which is something, we don't do this, and cruel and unusual punishment, or if it's, killing civilians or whatever it is, right? But Donald Trump says that he makes the order, and so therefore it's lawful. Is there any truth to that?
No, just because he says to do it doesn't mean it's automatically lawful.
Right.
Just going back to our original conversation we had about the drug cartel, just because he says that they're military targets and insurgents doesn't mean they are. Right? Military orders, in order for them to be legal, they must relate to a military duty, which includes activities responsible and necessary to accomplish a military mission, to safeguard and promote the morale, discipline, and usefulness of members of the command, and directly connected to the maintenance of good order of the service. It has to relate to a mission of the military. Just because he says he's to do it doesn't necessarily mean it's lawful.
And the irony here is that Donald Trump will be protected from any unlawful order because it's an official act, which, thank you, John Roberts and the Supreme Court for, he has presidential immunity essentially, but anybody who's following those orders will not. And they could eventually, even if not immediately, could at some point be held accountable. Right. I know that the United States is not Germany. We have our own set of laws and constitution, but that's the Nuremberg defense, right? Is that why I was just following orders? And they're like, well, no. You were doing really bad things and they were illegal and you shouldn't have done them. Right.
So even if you get your day in court, right, it's 18 months, 2 years later, thousands of dollars dumped into criminal defense counsel in support of your military defense counsel. You've been placed on hold, right? You haven't had any billets of responsibility. You haven't had any promotions. You haven't had any moves. You've been literally handing out basketballs at the MWR, gym. then you get to go to court and you put in a motion saying, that this is an unlawful order. You're going to be placed in front of a military judge, and he or she is the one that's going to determine whether this order is a lawful order. Does it relate to a military purpose? And you're at the whims of that military judge to determine whether the order is lawful. And at that point, your future's up in the air because you don't know what kind of military judge you're going to get. And we already know that a lot of military officers of senior rank have been vetted out based on the loyalty test that's already been given.
Right.
So so now the worst thing that can happen is you can go to jail and get a dismissal, and your career is over, and now you're in the brig.
Sounds great.
It's why it's just. I've said this before, but I have to, just listening to what you're saying. If I were somebody who wished this country ill, I could not think of a more effective way to do that than to do this. Because if you are an 18-year-old who has just graduated high school and you want to enlist in the United States military, and this is the kind of stuff that you can anticipate being subjected to, you'll pass. You'll pass, even if you want to serve your country, because this is not about serving your country. This is about protecting yourself. And just, it is terrifying, and it is going to, I assume, you tell me, but make us much less prepared and affect readiness. And not to mention, of course, all the moral reasons as to why this should never be taking place. But to have somebody like Pete Hegseth, who served in the military for a while, but never actually in any position of real authority, from what I can what I understand, to suddenly do this to people like you, Jaclyn, and others whose job it is to uphold the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and to Mark Kelly, and to all the other men and women who potentially are in a position to call out wrongdoing, is just insane. And to basically say that, you tell me, but we prosecuted people in Nuremberg for doing exactly this, right? Effectively saying, following orders is not a good enough reason to do this.
Yeah, and even if we go through the whole process, and I end up putting in the motion saying that it was an illegal order, and showing through evidence that there was no military purpose behind it. The punishment is the process, right? The punishment is shelling out all that money and being placed on hold for 18 months to 2 years, and having my career pass me by, and having all of the rest of my peers, end up following those orders and getting promoted. It's just like Trump has been overruled more than 50 times already by the courts. It's the shock and awe factor of the immediate, knee-jerk reaction of the silencing of the dissenters that he gets from doing what he wants to do. And then the courts take months to catch up to, to show that his actions were illegal. The process is the punishment here. He doesn't care about the outcome of it all.
Yeah, it's a threat. It's, to your point, right? He's trying to silence everyone. He's like, listen, look at somebody like Mark Kelly. He's an astronaut. The guy's list of accomplishments are very long, and we're not only going to try to intimidate him, we're going to try to humiliate him, and then we're going to use that to silence everybody else. And I want to play this clip here. He was on Rachel Maddow the night that this all went down. I just want to play this really quick.
So I've had a missile blow up next to my airplane. I've been nearly shot down multiple times. I've flown a rocket ship into space 4 times, built by the lowest bidder. And my wife, Gabby Giffords, meeting with her constituents, shot in the head, 6 people killed around her. A horrific thing. She spent 6 months in the hospital. We know what political violence is, and we know what causes it, too. The statements that Donald Trump made is insightful, incites others. He's got millions of supporters. People listen to what he says more so than anybody else in the country. And he should be careful with his words. But I'm not going to be silenced here. Is it stressful? I've been stressed by, things more important than Donald Trump trying to intimidate me into shutting my mouth and not doing my job. He didn't like what I said. I'm going to show up for work every day, support the Constitution, do my job, hold this administration accountable, hold this president accountable when he is out of line. That's the responsibility of every U.S. senator and every member of Congress. He's not going to silence us.
Yeah, and before we move on to just the next question I have about the foolishness of all this. Sorry, it's so tiny I can't see it. Is this the right one? Okay, so here's the other part of this. This is why I wanted to ask Jaclyn. So Pete Hegseth, this was yesterday, quote tweeted. So Senator Mark Kelly had posted a photo of himself and his medals on his uniform, saying, "When I was 22 years old, I commissioned as an ensign in the United States Navy, swore an oath to the Constitution, upheld that oath, etc., etc." Pete Hegseth says, "So, Captain in quotes, God, he's such a douchebag. Captain Kelly, not only did your sedition video intentionally undercut good order and discipline, but you can't even display your uniform correctly. Your medals are out of order and rows reversed. When, if you are recalled to active duty, I'll start with a uniform inspection." First, I can't. First of all, I saw this in the comments. And like, Julie, I don't know if you see. Julie knows Pete Hegseth, so it's a little bit different. But for her. But I saw that. I had a good laugh. But anyways, so Jaclyn, and I apologize, the sun is moving here behind me. Jaclyn, can you explain why Pete Hegseth is a moron, specific to this situation?
Yeah, and I think I sent you a couple pictures.
You did. Let me pull them up here while you're talking.
So it looks like Senator Kelly had a selfie, and it looks like his medals were reversed because it was a selfie.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, his medals were over his left.
The camera flips. So
right.
This is the screenshot you sent.
So that's the real picture of him in his uniform with his ribbons taken from the front. And if you look, they're in the correct order, and that's the selfie picture. So then I went and I did the research, and I looked up the awards. From the top, just the top couple rows is the personal awards, and they go from the most prestigious down. The Defense Superior Service Medal, he's got an oak leaf there, so he's got 2 awards. That's Superior Meritorious Service in a joint position. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5 other personal awards higher than that, and 4 of them are acts of valor in combat. Then he's got the Legion of Merit for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services or achievements. And he's got the Distinguished Flying Cross with 2 awards. That's heroism or extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flights. That's acts of valor or extraordinary achievement. Then you've got an Air Medal with 4 awards. That's heroism or meritorious achievement in aerial flights. He served in combat. For ground troops, you get the Combat Action Ribbon if you've taken direct fire from the enemy. If you're a pilot in the air and you've taken direct fire from the enemy, you get the Air Medal. He's taken direct fire from the enemy 4 times while in the air. He's got the Navy Achievement Medal with a V, which means for valor. So he served with valor in combat. He's got the Navy Commendation Medal with V, 2 awards. He served with valor with the Navy Commendation Medal. And then, it kind of goes on from there. So just his personal award shows that, he served with distinction and made impacts at the joint duty level, at the service level, and while in combat. And he's a war hero.
Yeah, the guy's an American hero, for God's sakes, and an astronaut, and husband to Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, which he talked about in that clip. And I just, again, like when you said this to me, that it was like the selfie, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And I asked Jaclyn to send a couple photos of herself. So when she was active duty. So here's a photo of Jaclyn, selfie from she's with the camera flipped. Okay. That's how that works. And then from the front, like an actual photograph, right? I mean,
the awards match up, like it's not that hard to recognize that, the first picture he had with his medals was a selfie, just like my selfie.
Right, right.
They're in order. They're
Sure.
just reversed because the camera was reversed.
Right. It's so again, and like the language that Pete Hegseth is using is to try and humiliate him. But a funny thing, I think this is backfiring because I think everyone is coming to Mark Kelly's side. I would throw this up. Jeff Flake here tweeted out, Jeff Flake, Republican. Mark Kelly is a good man who served his country honorably in the past, continues to serve honorably in the U.S. Senate. What he and his wife, Gabby, have sacrificed for this country is immeasurable. I'm proud to call him my senator. Charlotte Clymer, too, also. Let me sum this up for non-military folks. Senator Mark Kelly didn't violate any military laws, none. Hegseth is a little bitch ass.
That's not like Charlotte Clymer, by the way. That's not like Charlotte Clymer. She does not.
No. She never speaks she's usually very, very, but Hegseth's little bitch ass has been ordered by Trump to retaliate against Senator Kelly. Exactly. And again, U.S. Navy captain, combat fighter pilot, NASA space shuttle pilot, NASA space shuttle commander, ISS assembly and delivery missions, U.S. astronaut. I mean, it goes on and on. And so Burgess Everett also tweeted out, some Republicans coming to Senator Mark Kelly's defense tonight amidst DOD investigation into his video appearance. Burkowski, also a Republican, says, quote, to accuse him and other lawmakers of treason and sedition for rightfully pointing out that service members can refuse illegal orders is reckless and flat out wrong. Curtis says, Kelly's career has been defined by service. His record as a combat naval aviator and NASA astronaut reflects his example of discipline and dedication that are important for success. I mean, and I do want to point out here too, Jim Himes, friend of the show, was on Jen Psaki last night too.
In combination with the whole Russian 28-point plan, in combination with the lethal strikes on drug boats carrying cocaine in the Caribbean, what the world is seeing is that the Trump administration is purely performative, right? It doesn't matter what really happens, so long as in the moment when you're very, very mad at Mark Kelly, you threaten to court-martial him. Now, Mark Kelly will never be court-martialed because, as you point out, what he said was perfectly consistent with the Uniform Code of Military Justice and what every officer knows is true. And by the way, if you ever did have a court-martial and Mark Kelly's defense attorney said, now, is there any context at all in which one might be worried that Donald Trump might issue an illegal order? Well, let's run the tape. Donald Trump suggested that maybe the United States military could train in America's cities. Donald Trump has undertaken attacks on cocaine boats in the Caribbean on the flimsiest of legal rationales. So, I mean, it's a little bit like the Comey case. It's a little bit like the Letitia James case. It's purely performative, and at the end of the day, it's going nowhere. But in the meantime, my colleagues are getting death threats and are very much at risk because of the rhetoric of this performative president.
I mean, that he basically confirms everything you said, Jaclyn. Everything. It's purely performative. This is insane. Congressman Himes said last night on MS Now, on MSNBC.
Yeah. It's not mutinous. It's not seditious. It's not prejudice to good order and discipline. It's not to bring the conduct of a nature of discredit. It's not conduct unbecoming an officer. You look at the elements. I mean, it's none of it. It's just performative. It's just look at me. I can bring Senator Kelly, to active duty to court-martial him and just put him through the process. It's a threat.
Yeah, it is. Look at me. And again, Julie, you can speak to maybe just the character part of this too, as Pete Hegseth, he's a deeply unserious person.
I mean, he is a deeply unserious person. He is a person who was saved effectively from financial ruin and from being bounced by every job he had by being very good on TV and looking the part. I, to this day, believe that if Roger Ailes were alive, he would not have ascended the way he did. But the new leadership at Fox has a certain penchant for young, snarky men. And whether it's Pete Hegseth or Greg Gutfeld or Jesse Waters, and that's how he got to where he got. I know Pete Hegseth. I certainly haven't seen him in many years, but I worked with him at Fox and knew him. He did well on his SATs. That is literally the only thing he did it well at. Got him into Princeton. And, and that's it. So this is not somebody who is a serious person. This is somebody who I believe, has a addiction problem, among other things. And to have this person be in charge of deciding the fates of people who have truly risked their lives in combat, in space, in national security. And what is even more shocking to me is that Donald Trump, who's the commander-in-chief of the United States military, has he has called for the deaths
Yes.
of people like Mark Kelly. Now, Mark Kelly knows a little bit something about political violence. It is a miracle of God that his wife is not dead. Gabrielle Giffords obviously was shot in the head. Another one of her aides died because somebody showed up to one of her appearances in Arizona and opened fire.
Yeah, like a parking lot.
Because she was a congresswoman.
Mm-hmm.
This was not a random killing. This was a political act of political violence. And for somebody to do that to her and to put her and her husband in harm's way again, and when that person is the commander-in-chief of the United States military, and when those orders are being executed, maybe not to harm him physically, but to certainly create more predicate to say that this man is treasonous and he's court-martialed for, I don't know, treason, I guess. Is that what they're trying to basically imply? It's somebody's going to take matters into their own hands.
Yes. There's all it takes is one person.
Yes.
All it takes is one person to be crazy and out of control.
And that is sick. I mean, that is sick. And what I think about, Jaclyn, you signed up to put your life on the line to protect us, right? Something Donald Trump never did. Mark Kelly and every single one of those other patriots, I don't know how else to describe them, but people who were in that video put their lives on the line, either in intelligence or in the military, to do the same. And to have them be sitting ducks because somebody got their feelings hurt is when I go back to what I said earlier, which is I just cannot believe that somebody like that is capable and is entrusted to run the United States, and that if I wanted to create the perfect robot to take us down, this would be it.
Yep.
Yeah. And all they were doing was just reiterating, the oaths of office and the UCMJ, and that, you don't have to follow illegal orders. And orders are presumed lawful, right? But at the same time, patently illegal orders don't need to be followed. And those are orders that are directing one to commit a crime. And we've already seen, based on court orders, that Trump and his administration has violated federal statutes when they've ordered troops to do certain acts, such as going into towns and cities like Los Angeles, Portland, and Chicago, and on flimsy ground, such as striking fishing boats in the Caribbean.
Right.
And we've already had an hour discussion on that.
Yeah.
And there's more out there.
Yeah.
The ability to question that's what you want in military officers, right? The ability to think.
Yeah.
To analyze. And, the Uniform Code of Military Justice states that we are not obligated to follow illegal orders.
Yeah. And
that's exactly what Senator Kelly and the rest of them said in that video. And that is not seditious. That's not mutiny. That's not conduct unbecoming. That is not prejudicial to good order and discipline. It's simply stating the law, and that is not illegal.
Yep.
Well said, Jaclyn.
Well said. Well, on that note, I unfortunately have to run because I have a whole house of family to feed here.
Do you have 60 seconds? Do you have 60 seconds, Julie?
Yes.
Can I hold you? Jaclyn, you can stay here for this too. I was texting Julie late last night about, there's something that I just wanted to show quickly. It's something that I worked on about Mark Kelly 3 years ago. 3 years ago? It was 2022. I was the creative director at the Lincoln Project for several years, and I did a lot of things there. And while I do not speak about my time there for reasons that I'm not going to go into at this moment, I am enough time away from it that separated from it that I feel like I don't want to hide this work that I did there that I'm very proud of. And one of the things that I did there that I was very proud of was an ad for Mark Kelly. And it's talking about all of these things that we talked about today on the show. And I really would like to show it. It feels like a little weird to do this. If you know me personally.
I don't know why it should, Michelle. I'm going to tell you something. You worked on that ad. It is as much your ad as anybody else's. You should take full pride in doing it. It's a wonderful ad. You sent it to me last night. I thought it was fantastic. I think everybody here needs to see it, especially with what Mark Kelly's going through. I hope Mark Kelly sees the good work you did on his behalf.
Yeah. So let me just show this again. This was from when I was at the Lincoln Project. This is 3 years old. I took a screen recording of it because I don't have the file anywhere on me, but here it is.
It's not often Arizona has a leader who's already proven himself in service to our country. That leader is Mark Kelly. Arizona has been lucky to have senators who put country over party and people over politics. Now Mark is ready to carry on that great Arizona tradition. Patriot, U.S. Navy pilot, American astronaut. Tested, courageous, steady. Mark makes Arizona and the country proud. Mark Kelly, a history of service, a record of accomplishment, an independent leader, and a proven American patriot.
Here we are in the flight deck of Endeavour, flight day 1.
Mark Kelly, an Arizona hero who always makes us proud.
I mean, if that doesn't get you, I don't know what will.
Is that Peter Coyote?
It is. It is. Again, the only man in America who's allowed to call me Toots. I was going through I had a bunch of screenshots. It was because I was trying to find the ad on my phone, and it was like Peter Coyote. And it was like, thanks, Toots. I was like, fantastic. But
that is a beautiful ad, Michelle, and you should be proud of yourself for.
Thank you. I worked on that with a handful of people, Manhattan Creative out of Colorado, and obviously my boss at the time was also. But it was something that we really wanted to do, and we called it The Right Stuff, inspired by the film. And if you want to share that, I invite you to share that. Go on to their YouTube page and find it. But just sometimes like things are just a little bit too important in the moment I had to put my pride aside, and I wanted to just show that with people. So, and thank you to Peter Coyote as always as being the very generous collaborator that he is and lending his voice to these beautiful stories. So that being said, Jaclyn, thank you so much.
Jaclyn, thank you. Thank you for coming and dumbing this all down for me and explaining this to people who don't know what you know about this.
Yeah.
As you could hear, people are
starting to file in
and don't really care that I'm doing the show. So I'm going to go.
All right, everyone. Jaclyn,
right,
we'll see you later. Julie, everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll be back here tomorrow for a Thanksgiving show for anybody who just wants to hear from us or wants to be part of the conversation. We can check in with each other tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. Have a great evening, everybody.
Feel better, Michelle.
Thank you.
Right. Bye, everybody.